It's not too late to talk about Pokemon Legends Arceus, right? I just want to talk about the timeline real quick. So, Legends Arceus was a pretty groundbreaking entry into the main series of Pokemon games. It shook up the battle system, took us to an older region set in a different period of time, and most importantly today features time travel, which until then had only been briefly explored in an exclusive event with Celebi in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. This has naturally had a lot of us talking about the timeline, or timelines, of the Pokemon world. So I said timelines, so how about a quick recap of the timelines in Pokemon? There are basically 4 main timelines in Pokemon, and these of course can be further split between different versions of games and then once again between different copies of games, but the main 4 are as follows. The Classic Timeline, which is just the original Gen 1 and 2, as it was originally intended to just end with Gold and Silver. The Modern Timeline, which covers the Game Boy Advance and DS era of Pokemon games, and its Mega counterpart. The Mega Timeline, following a similar sequence of events with one major difference being that Mega Evolution exists in it. These two timelines supposedly split apart upon the detonation of the Ultimate Weapon around 3,000 years before the events of X and Y. Oh, and Sword and Shield could likely be in either of these. And finally, the Wildcard Let's Go timeline, currently only having one pair of games, Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, but enough funny business and contradictions that it gets a timeline of its own. Thanks, Mina. Now, which timeline does Legends Arceus take place in? Well, for the sake of today's discussion, it probably doesn't actually matter, but since the classic timeline is strictly the first 2 generations, it's not there, and since there's so little we know about the Let's Go timeline, I'm not going to outright assume it's there either. So between the Modern and Mega timelines, I personally think this is the one game where it's safe to assume that it pretty much goes down the exact same way regardless. Hisui is largely an untouched region, there's not a lot going on there, and there's no reason Mega Evolution would have any relevance whether it existed or not. But we are also going to be talking about Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum today, so since there's no other instance of Modern Sinnoh in another timeline, we will focus on the Modern timeline. Now, due to the events and stories of Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum and Legends Arceus, I think the course of events in Legends may have created, say, a temporal link between DP and Platinum, making them more than just alternate universes. For the sake of convenience, for now let's solely focus on the events of Pokemon Diamond. In Diamond, Cyrus is only aware of one Pokemon responsible for the creation of the world, Dialga, and he thinks it's the only one. Much like how back in the day, the Diamond and Pearl clans are convinced of the existence of only one almighty Sinnoh, but cannot agree on its appearance. I believe this blissful ignorance is because Pokemon Diamond is set in a world in which the events of Legends Arceus as we know them never happened. That is to say that the player character was never sent to solve the mystery of the space-time rift, which would result in the clans never reconciling or understanding each other's perspectives of Almighty Sinnoh. In fact, I think it's likely that only one clan would persist and simply win over the other, essentially taking over the region, and leaving the other to fade into obscurity. So in this case that would be the Diamond clan, and this could mean that in Pokemon Diamond, Cynthia's grandmother, who is the only person in the region who can show you what Palkia looks like, may in fact be a descendant of the Pearl clan. Regardless of this, following the timeline of Pokemon Diamond, our hero faces off against the misled Cyrus and captures the summoned Dialga, resolving the catastrophe they would have wrought otherwise, and goes on to become the champion and eventually meet Arceus itself. With the feat of having quelled and captured one of its children under their belt, I believe this would be the perfect grounds for Arceus to deem our hero worthy and send them back in time with the sole mission to seek out all Pokemon. So back we go. Our hero now becomes the savior of the Hisui region, defeating Volo and unifying the clans in the process. Now, quick cutaway just to explain something that you might be wondering. I reckon even in the unaltered timeline, Volo's plan would have failed regardless, as he wasn't able to find all the plates on his own. Not that that would even work, as Arceus would simply have no interest in a human like him. And since he and Giratina only sought to use each other, their partnership, if you can even call it that, would certainly end in betrayal, or at least an unsavory separation once they realize they can't achieve either of their goals. Characters also mention throughout the game that there was another large rift that occurred before this one, so these times would eventually come to pass. But I digress. With the clans unified and peace returned to the land by the hands of our hero, a different Sinnoh to the one from before is born, in a future where Cyrus knows about both Dialga and Palkia, and once again our hero takes him down. This time with the aid of the enraged Giratina, who has had a change of heart due to learning humanity through its time spent with the player in Legends Arceus. The story continues as we know, our hero goes on to become the champion, only this time has the entire creation quartet with them by the end. So how about that? What do you think about the possibility that Pokemon Platinum could be the result of altering the history of Diamond and Pearl? I hope we get more Legends games further down the line. Maybe there will be more to learn about other enhanced versions like Emerald and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Thanks very much for watching anyway. I've been Kai Sirius and this has been a Pokemon Theory.